There was a lot of things that I wish I would have known before moving to the DMV so I could be mentally prepared. Good and bad things. So I am going to spare y'all and give y'all the 411 on what you should know before you move to the DMV.
So tell me what you need from me now. I know what you need to be now, cause I'm done with it now. No more damages now.
Hi everyone, my name is Taylor Howard and thanks for coming back. But for those who are new, my name is Taylor Howard and I am talking all things 20s and transitional phases. The purpose of this YouTube channel is to document my journey in my 20s in a new city, but to also inform and educate us 20-somethings on several topics such as career development, finances, relationship building, etc. So without further ado, let me get into my topic today. So if you all have been following me on my journey so far, you know that I just moved to the DMV area. I moved in March, and to say this move has been a whirlwind is an understatement. I did not anticipate moving to the DMV. I've always wanted to move to New York, and so it was a hard transition, and it was a very abrupt transition. I decided that I wanted to move in January. I was here in March, and so there was a lot of things that I wish I would have known before moving to the DMV so I could be mentally prepared. Good and bad things. So I am going to spare y'all and give y'all the 411 on what you should know before you move to the DMV. So something that I didn't account for as much as I should have was how expensive the DMV DC area is. The average cost to live in DC is $2,300. That is so expensive. I'm like dreading the day I gotta pay for it. But it's $2,300, and that's without utilities, that's without parking. And I talked about in my last video that when you are budgeting to move, you should save about 3 to 6 months rent before you move. And so right now I'm in the process of saving. And I got this really good tip from a friend that obviously there's a range. So I looked up the range in DC. It's about $1,800 to $3,000 for an apartment. So I'm trying to save on the upper end. So I'm saving around $2,100, $2,200 a month. And so when I do get an apartment, if I get an apartment for $1,800, I will have a bigger cushion because I saved on the upper end. So that's a tip that I learned that I want to pass it on to you. So while I did say it's very expensive, there are things that you can do to be more cost effective while living in DC. So there's one option, roommates. And I know that like some of us are getting grown now, so like we don't want roommates, but that is such a cost effective thing to do like while you're moving out here. You can find roommates through Facebook groups, you can find them through community, you could find them through so many different outlets, GroupMe's, etc. You could find them, and that is a way to be cost effective. There's also these things called English basements. I found out about them in Chicago, but you can literally rent out a basement from someone's house. Another option that I just recently learned about is the Inclusionary housing program. And what that means is you can apply online, and it's a lottery where you can rent apartments in new developments, and you can get luxury apartments at that. So those are just a few things that you can do. Something I wish I would have also known about traveling in DC was the traffic. Now, I come from Chicago, and we have a really bad rush hour. But the difference between Chicago traffic and DC traffic is, at least when I am in Chicago, I know, okay, I'm gonna be in traffic for 40 minutes, but I'm going 25 plus miles away. With DC, I will be in traffic for 40 minutes just to go 10 miles. Like I'm not even going that far, but the traffic is so heavy.
Rude and disrespectful.
And it could be at random times of the day. So I know in Chicago, for the most part, the weekends are really, really traffic heavy and rush hour is really bad. DC, on a Saturday morning, it could be really heavy. On a Sunday afternoon, it could be heavy. I just don't know. And then there's always a marathon, or there's always like a festival that like shuts down one of the streets. So you just cannot anticipate how bad the traffic is, which is why I think that you should budget about 30 to 45 minutes into your planning, because you just never know what you're going to run into if you're going to take your car out here. I also didn't know about the roundabouts, and it could be really tricky, like trying to make sure that you're driving while also acknowledging the car that's coming before you, because they can come really fast and no one uses turn signals. And clearly I'm very triggered by the driving system here, but that's something that I wish I would have known before moving. I will also like to note that parking can be very, very confusing. There'll be like 3 signs. One will say like tow zone. One will say park from 5:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. Monday through Friday. Then a third one will say something like permit to zone only, parking available for 2 hours. And you're like, so can I park here or not? Like, I'm gonna try to find a picture to show, but it's so confusing. So keep in mind, if you're gonna bring a car, just know that it's really, really, really hard to find parking out here. Something that I also did not realize was how transient DC is. The average person lives in DC for about 4 to 5 years, and it usually happens with the turnover of a new president, or it usually happens with the turnover of a new administration or a new president. And so people don't really stay here. People also come here to jumpstart their careers. People come here to grind, find themselves. I've never seen such hard workers, especially the people that work on the Hill. Like, I have a few friends in my small group that work on the Hill, and they are grinding, guys. So I just didn't anticipate how hard it would be to make friends, just because people are in and out. I've met people who are like, yeah, I've been here for 2 years, I'm about to move, or people that are here like, oh, I'm only here for 3 to 6 months. I'm only here for, a transitional time at my job. Like, this is one of their rotation stops. So it is very transient. And that's not to say that you won't find longevity here. I also know people that have been here for years and years, but it is a very transient place, but it's room for so many opportunities. Which brings me to my next point. I did not realize how important or how many people prioritize networking here. When I first moved here, and I would meet people, one of the first things that they would ask is like, hey, what's your name? I'm so-and-so. What do you do for a living? At first, I thought it was like very off-putting, why people are just like, I'm like, why do you want to know what I do so bad? Like, it was very frustrating to me, but I think that just goes back to what I said before, is that people are trying to make it. People are grinding here. People are jumpstarting their careers. And so there are people that are from all walks of life that come here. And it's just so important, because you never know who you are going to meet at brunch. You never know who you're going to meet when you're walking down the street waiting for your bus. There's just so many people. So network, like master that. Go to networking events if your job has it, or if you see it on Eventbrite, I say go to it. I personally haven't been to this yet, but there is a Black young adult networking events that happen in DC. And so I suggest you all do that. You just never know who you're going to meet. And it's so prominent here to network. And so I really encourage you all to get your elevator pitches together and up your communication skills, because you're going to need it.
Hi.
Okay.
My next point is, it is so diverse. So diverse. I have never met so many ethnicities, so many nationalities, so many races, the demographics just range so much, and it's really cool to see. It's such a melting pot. Like, you know how people say like the United States is a melting pot? I didn't really feel that for real until I moved to DC. It's people from all walks of life. It's people from all countries, and I get to taste so many different foods. I can go to Korean barbecue on one block, and then the next block there's Indian food, and then on the next block it's Italian. And it's just so cool to be able to get to know other people's cultures, even if it's from a dish. They also have a lot of festivals. Like recently there was a Turkish festival. I take salsa right now, and I'm able to see the Latin American culture, the Latin culture. And it's just really cool of the amount of exposure you get when you move to the DMV. So I love that aspect of it. That's probably one of my favorite aspects to it. And so I wish I would have, not that I necessarily needed to have known that, but it was such a culture shock in a good way. Talked about how expensive it is to live in the DMV and how expensive food and housing and parking and all those things are. I do want to emphasize that there's so many cost-effective activities you can do in the DMV though. There's trails, there's hikes. Like my favorite 2 hikes is Old Rag in Virginia. And it's a 12-mile hike. It's beautiful. It was less than $20 for admission. And there's also Billy Goat Trail. It's less than $20 to park there. There are Smithsonian museums. All the Smithsonian museums are free from my understanding. There's the National Mall, there's the monuments, and there's also so much to do within its respected towns. Like Virginia has so much to offer, Maryland has so much to offer, DC has so much to offer, and every town has its own culture too. And I just really love how no matter where you go in the DMV, there's always something you can explore that's usually cost effective. So the last thing I want to talk about is find what works for you. Give this city everything you got. I did struggle, and I'm still struggling to find community and make friends, but I really wanted to give DC all I had. And so something that I chose to do is, I talked about earlier, I joined salsa classes. I take salsa and bachata classes, and that's something that I would have never thought I would have done. Like I never would have done that in the city. But here I am just so exposed to so many different cultures and backgrounds that that's something that I want to take a risk on and see what I could do with it. I also go by myself and explore different places. Like I told you on the last video, I didn't have a job when I moved here, and I was grinding, networking, and I landed a job a few weeks after I moved here. I've set up lunches with people. I've gone out with people. I've tried Bumble BFF. Like there's so many things that I've done here so far, and it's only been 6 months. And I don't regret my journey at all because I'm giving it all I got. And even though it's taking a little more time to find community or to get settled than I thought it would, I still appreciate where I am right now. So even though this is subjective and based off of my personal opinion on what it's like to live in the DMV, and I still think that you should come out here and explore it for yourself. So thank you all for tuning in to this video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And if you're from the DMV area, drop below on some things that you think that people should know before moving to the DMV.
So tell me what you need